Okay, so for this bank robber problem, I Googled it and I determined that one story is equal to 3.3 meters, so that's what I'll be using to do this problem. Initially, we know that his velocity is 10.5 meters per second at 10 degrees, and so we use trig functions to figure out his velocity in the y direction and his velocity in the x direction, which we have right here. Next, we want to find out at what time during his jump is he level with the second building. So, at what time is he vertically at the second building? So, using this equation, plug in 13.2 for your y final, which is the height of this building in meters, and 16.5 for y initial, which is the height of this building in meters. And we plug in 1.82 for his y velocity initial and negative 9.8, of course, for gravity, and solve for t. I use my graphing calculator to solve this equation, and I get time equals 1.3 seconds when he's vertically at the height of the second building. So now what we need to do is just plug this time into the x equation to figure out how far he goes horizontally, basically in 1.03 seconds. So using this equation here, x initial equals 0 and x final is what we're trying to find. Then we plug in 10.34 for his initial velocity, 0 for his final velocity, and 1.03, of course, which we just found for the time, and we determined that the farthest the second building can be away from the first building is 5.33 meters. Next, we want to find the velocity of the robber as he hits the roof of the second building at the max horizontal distance. So basically, in order to do this, we need to find the velocity in the x direction, the final velocity in the x direction, and the final velocity in the y direction. We already know the final velocity in the x direction is going to be 10.34 meters per second, which is the same as its initial velocity, and we know that because the x velocity never changes because there's no force acting on it. So also what we know is that when he jumps and when he is during his jump, when he's back level with this first building, his y velocity will be the same as will be the negative of his initial y velocity. So we know at like this point here where he's level again with this first building, his velocity will be negative 1.82 meters per second. Also, we know that, let me see here. So when he gets to this point, we know that the vertical distance between these two buildings is 6.5 minus 13.2, which gives us 3.3 meters. So that's what 3.3 is what we'll use for our y initial in this equation, right, which is right here. So back to solving for the Vy final, we use this equation. Vy final is what we're solving for. Our Vy initial, like I said, is negative 1.82. Negative 9.8, of course, is gravity, and then your y final would be 0 minus your y initial, which I'm making 3.3 due to 16.5 minus 13.2. and we determined that our Vy final, velocity in the y direction final, is negative 8.25 meters per second. And this, of course, we already know. So finding the magnitude of the velocity to obtain velocity final is 13.23 meters per second for your Vy final, for V final, not Vy final, for your total velocity final. And I just realized I forgot to find the direction of that. So the direction would be, actually I'll just make a second video on doing that. Okay, well that's all for now.